Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. It's our first board meeting of the year. I'm Laverne Lewis, TriMet's board president. Welcome to TriMet Board of Directors meeting for January 22nd, 2025. We are gathered again today here at One Main Place in our boardroom. Loving our boardroom still. It feels like home finally for our January meeting. We are also live streaming on the meeting on YouTube. All members of the board are present, or almost present. We have Director Flowers virtually. He's
Yes,
here.
I'm here.
Hello. There you are. And Director Frisbee is still en route. Okay. Thank you for joining us today. We will begin with our public forum for those who are present and have signed up to testify. Members of the public who wish to provide testimony but could not be here may also join us virtually after we have heard from those who are present and have signed up to testify. I believe we do not have anyone virtually today. No? Okay. For those who are offering testimony today, please direct your comments to the TriMet and to transit-related services rather than other topics. We also ask that your comments be limited to 3 minutes. You will note that there will be a time indicator to help you comply with this request, and we ask that you respect the time for yourself and for those that will follow. If you're unable to limit your comments to the 3 minutes, you can also reply by leaving additional comments in writing. TriMet staff will provide email address for you to send those comments to the board. Now I will call up to testimony, two people at a time. Our first two, we have two this morning. Our first person is Jock Mills. Good morning, Doc. How are you, Mr. Mills? And we have Anush. There you are. Anush Forahar. Good morning. Come on up. Thank you for coming this morning to testify. Make sure that you've turned on your mics.
Is it on now?
Yes.
It's the green one. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mills, you may proceed.
Thank you, and good morning. I'm happy to be here. You have hard jobs. You have to listen to people. You don't generally speak at these meetings, I've discovered, or ask questions, but you do need to make some difficult decisions. You need to represent a wide variety of people, people who may be non-ambulatory, people who may be aging, and it's those people in particular I'm here to talk about this morning because they're being affected by decisions you've made. I'm also here to tell you that the number 17 bus is alive and well. I happened to write it down this morning. I left my house, excuse me, at 7:47, and I was in downtown Portland at 8:06. There was not a ridership issue on that bus. It was full of students going to school and full of people coming downtown. In fact, there are 16 of them who, when they heard what I was doing, signed on to my testimony. And I've given you their information so you know who they are. One of those persons was elderly and walked with a cane when she got off the bus. If I had taken the bus under your new regime, I would have had a 20-minute, 11-block walk to get to a bus that would take me directly downtown. Or I could have climbed several hundred feet up the Alameda Ridge to the number 33 bus. So what you're doing is having a profound impact on a very large neighborhood. Those 16 people are here with me today. I'm talking from my experience of 40 years in working in the legislature, with the legislature, and I have some observations I want to share in addition to my testimony that you have in front of you. In Salem, people listened. They responded. Those people who were responsible for making decisions tried to reach consensus. They saw multiple sides of the same issue. Their goal was to reach consensus. Public outcry was important to them. Everybody's testimony could be seen and read and responded to. And most important, there were fiscal impact statements so we could see what money was involved and what decisions were being made, and third parties could get engaged and make a difference as well. I'm going to stop there. I know I only have 3 minutes. You have my testimony. You have actually pages of information that I've provided you over the last 3 years making the case for the 17 bus, and I hope you take things to heart. Stop making everything happen at once and make your decisions more thoughtfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Yes, Ms.
It's not green, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Oh, it's not?
Okay.
Good. Good morning. Please prevent even the perception of criminal negligence by requiring employees and contractors to get tested for free once a year for black mold in blood and lungs. Otherwise, it is criminal negligence, since TriMet is aware of the long-term effects of black mold and COVID-19. Second one, please divide about $100 million equally among the families of TriMet employees that passed away for any reason since November 1st, 2019, and the living employees that have work-related health conditions or diseases. This will include about 1,000 families. Each family will get about $100,000 without having to prove that the death of the loved one was work-related, since it is hard to prove that the death was related to COVID-19 or due to exposure to black mold at work. I have been an advocate of TriMet employees for years. Some drivers did test positive for black mold, and they did sue TriMet. Most drivers respect me for what I'm trying to do for TriMet employees. Some drivers think that any change will reduce their bonuses or get them fired. I filed 2 police reports, one on November 18, 2024, and one on January 13 of this year for death threats by a driver on June 20th of 2023, and 3 attempts to run me over as I got off the bus in November to January of this year. On November 7, 2024, as I was getting off the train door closed on my arms. Motion sensors for the door were not working, and train started to move. This was not an accident, and TriMet is not providing the camera recording to the police until I get an attorney and subpoena the train and buses' camera recordings. I am here to help. HR does not even interview me for any position. HR is required to interview me since I am disabled and need accommodations to do the work. I will live only another few years. Please allow me to live with dignity. Please prevent even the perception of criminal negligence.
Thank you, Mr. Mills, and thank you, Mr. Faraha, this morning. Thank you for bringing time to talk to us, and if you have documents, or we do have your original letters, please leave them with staff. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that is all for our testimony this morning. Yes. With no other members for public have signed up to testify, I will close the public forum at this time. Before I open a formal business meeting, I would like to ask that we take a moment of silence to reflect on two sober matters. The first is to recognize the sacrifices that have been made by two bus operators who recently have lost their lives in the line of duty. One who was shot in Atlanta while driving the bus, and the other who was stabbed in Seattle while driving his bus. TriMet showed its support, as many of you saw on the local news, by supporting our colleagues through attendance along with our local ATU leadership at the recent ceremony, as well as sending a TriMet transit bus and a Lyft bus to represent our agency. And we mourn for our fallen brothers in the other cities. The second is to reflect on the widespread damage, homes lost, and the incredible bravery of the firefighters, first responders, and the service providers who are still working tirelessly to protect and assist those in need. Many of us, including myself, have personal connections as a result of this massive destruction in Los Angeles area. We also recognize the significant losses by our sister transit agencies in the Los Angeles area. We can only hope that the fires are soon controlled and the rebuilding of this area, all of the areas, can start as soon as possible. Let us take this moment in silence to reflect on the importance of supporting one another during difficult times. Thank you. We will now proceed with our board report section of our business meeting. I will begin by asking Director Graham to present a report on the recent meeting with the Committee on Accessible Transportation, CAT.
Thank you so much,
Director
Dr.
Graham.
Lewis. Good morning, everyone. So CAT has met twice since our last update, and at the December meeting, we were provided an update on the safety and security efforts that the board has also been discussing, namely focused on oversized packages and bags of cans that have been brought onto buses and been challenging for people with mobility issues and other issues to navigate on the bus system. TriMet Security will issue citations and warnings when these items are brought on board. We also talked about the blue light phones, and CAT conducted a field trip to assess the phones, and we're in support of them being rolled out at additional locations. Pat Williams also provided an update on Senate Bill 1553 and House Bill 4002 to address the consumption of narcotics on public transit. For the staff updates, we were updated on the Sunflower Lanyard Program, which supports people who have hidden or non-apparent disabilities to signal to other people that they may need extra support while traveling. And those lanyards are available at the Jan Campbell Mobility Center. Finally, we sought input on a new opportunity to provide same-day on-demand service to Lyft riders in South Gresham, and those are ongoing discussions. In the January meeting, Ms. Turvey provided an overview of the FTA notice for the proposed clarification on the drug and alcohol policy regarding transportation network companies. And CAT, along with through the executive committee of CAT, will be gathering more feedback to provide comments in a consolidated way back to the FTA regarding how to maintain the safest pool of bus operators possible. We also were provided an update on the interstate bridge replacement. And then finally, I just want to mention that Transit Equity Day, observed annually on February 4th, to commemorate the life and legacy of Rosa Parks, will be hosted at the Transit Mobility Center from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on February 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Graham. I'll begin by asking any of our board members, are any questions for Director Graham? Okay, seeing none, thank you again. Okay, I will ask Director Flowers, are you there?
Yes, I am. Forgive any
Okay.
background noise as I communicated to Sam and to the rest of the board today. I'm in transit to attend to an urgent matter that came up last night. But I'm happy to report on impact if that's what you're tapping me for right now.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, please proceed.
Sure. So we met in December as well. We actually have another meeting tonight. But the December meeting was almost entirely focused on the extension of the streetcar system up to Montgomery Park. And there was testimony from a broad array of stakeholders from all over the Tri-County region in support of that extension, which was, of course, put to a vote and passed with near unanimous support. So very excited about the extension of transit to that area of our city, and happy to be supportive as an agency as that work continues to advance. And that's it on my end from Impact.
Thank you, Director Flowers. Are there any questions about or regarding impact for Director Flowers from the board? Thank you, and be safe while you're in transit. Okay, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And as soon as I'm stationary, I'll have my camera on.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll ask Director Kim to provide a report on the Finance and Audit Committee meeting from this morning.
Thank you, President Lewis. The Finance and Audit Committee met this morning to discuss mainly the TriMet's debt management policy. Our debt policy was last updated back in 2019, and today we received an overview of the significant updates to the debt policy, including debt management section, debt limitations, methods, structures for issuing debt, investment of debt proceeds and use of debt proceeds, compliance with IRS and required disclosures. In February, the board will review all of this and consider the debt policy updates. And TriMet will be looking to issue bonds sometime in fiscal year 2026. So there will be a resolution for the board's consideration in February, authorizing TriMet up to $150 million in revenue bonds. And lastly, we also reviewed a budget transfer, moving funds between public affairs and legal services. This will also come before the board in February for our consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kim. At this time, are there any questions from any of the board members for Director Kim? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Now I will turn to our General Manager for his monthly report. General Manager DeSoup.
Well, good morning, President Lewis, members of the board, good morning. Community, thank you for being here with us. TriMet staff, also good morning to you. I want to start off by saying Happy New Year to start off. We are up and rolling in 2025, and in my report this morning, I'm going to touch on a couple of things. One, ridership. We're going to take a look at numbers from November and December of 2024. We'll get a new summary on a monthly performance metric. And then Rosa Parks Day, as you mentioned, is coming up. And I'll let you know about that special celebration that we have planned. And then I have a significant update for you on our new MAX trains, our Type 6s that we'll talk about. Our Ticket to Ride partnership with the Portland Timbers and the Thorns is expanding this year. And we've reached a major milestone on the 82nd Avenue Transit Project that we'll talk about. And then we have an update from our TriMet programs focused on ensuring equity in our business dealings. And then finally, I'll talk a little bit more about TriMet and the ATU 757 joining the ceremonial procession to honor the fallen operator in Seattle. So I'll start off with ridership here, just to kind of move in. In November of 2024, TriMet provided more than 5.4 million rides. Our fall ridership is usually strong for TriMet, and for November 2024, we did not disappoint. Our weekly ridership was up 5.7% when you compare 23 November to 24, and that averaged to be about 70,000 additional boardings each week as compared to November of 2023. So moving now to December of 2024, TriMet provided more than 5.2 million rides in December. Our weekly ridership was slightly higher, but relatively unchanged from December 23 to December 24. We saw significant gains in our bus ridership, where weekly ridership was up 6.5%. And many of the improvements that we are putting in place as our Forward Together program, they're working as intended. And I want to give you a couple of examples. I've talked about this one before, but now we have the data to support the ridership on our Line 25, and that's the Gleason-Troutdale Road. It's up 437% year to year. And I want to make sure you heard it right, 437% it's up. This was due to the extension of this route, increased frequency, and also the additional of weekend service. There were several other bus lines also that was showing the double-digit increases. More people are riding the FX Division. I was on Division this weekend, and the buses, the green buses, were just packed on Division. Our Line 19, which is Woodstock-Gleason, and our Line 70, which is on 12th Avenue. Our snapshot shows that ridership on those lines are up 12 to 16%. Again, increase in frequency and really putting them out there. There's just some of the highlights that our bus service improvements have moved to. Now to MAX. We saw a slight year-to-over-year decrease in weekly ridership, and we're doing some additional analysis right now to really look at those numbers to get a better understanding, and I'll be coming back to you next month after I get that analysis information. Some of it may be due to the way that the ridership calculations were performed during the disruption of a better red back in 2023. But again, I want to dig into the numbers with staff, and I should have that information for you in the coming weeks to let you know. So turning to our performance, our transit system and asset support division, they've developed a new format to present some of our operational and security key performance indicators. So this was included in your packet, and it's titled Monthly Performance Summary. So Les Spittler, who's here, our Director of Transit System and Support Services. Andrew Wilson, you might as well come on up and join them as well. Our Director of Safety and Security, and our Senior Operations and Finance Planning Analyst, Catherine Keeling. They're here to present this new format. They're going to provide some commentary to you on the highlights, and they will be able to answer any questions that you may have. So I'll turn it over to you, Les.
All right. Good morning, President Lewis, members of the board. I'm Les Spittler, Director of Operations Analysis, Central Data. I'm here with
Catherine Keeling, Senior Analyst.
And you all know this guy. We're both in, Catherine and I are both in TriMet's newest division, the Transit System Asset Support, or TSAS. We report up through operations. As General Manager Dessou explained, we're here to present our first monthly operations performance summary in its new format. As some of you may recall, we used to present this quarterly in a longer PowerPoint deck. Over the past couple of months, we've been working very closely with Chief Operating Officer Bonnie Todd to put this new format together and present it today. We're really excited, and we are excited to hear your feedback. You may be wondering why we changed the format and frequency. Well, Sam and Bonnie wanted you to review these more regularly and become more familiar with our operations. This will be in your board packet monthly going forward, and we'll be here to answer any questions. Before getting started, let's go to the last page of the summary on page 41 of your packet. I'll give you a minute to get there, and it's also up on the screens. Yeah. So this is a one-stop shop for all of the operational performance metrics by mode on a 12-month look back with a rolling scale. You can see the top left quadrant is bus, top right max, lower left ATP, and lower right WES. Takes a little bit of time to figure out how to navigate this page, but once you do, it's full of great information. Back to the first page, I think it's 34, perfect. Before we get started, we'll be orienting you to each page as we go, calling out some performance highlights and anything else that stands out. And it's important to note that this report lags 2 months due to the time and effort it takes to extract all the data from our systems and analyze it and put it in this format. So this is November to November, 23 to 24. Catherine?
And our performance summary starts with 2 pages focused on ridership. The first page offers figures in a year-over-year framework as well as a year-to-date summary based on calendar years. The second page, next slide, contains charts of prior year and current year data and additional mode-specific comments.
All right, next page. So this starts the mode-specific page. Give technology a moment to catch up here. You see it in your board packet. I think it's page 36. You can see that the bus slide, we have some bulleted highlights on the top, and then there are 6 graphs. Each of those 6 graphs represents one of our key performance metrics. All of our metrics for bus look pretty good. On-time performance has been above target for most of the year and more steady than last year. This is due primarily to a collaborative effort between our bus operations and bus maintenance team to ensure buses are clean, parked, and ready to roll, and that operators are pulling out of the yard on time, which obviously increases their likelihood of being on time throughout their route. For mean distance between failure, the bus maintenance team is doing a great job making progress over last year. The data you see here can be attributed to a couple of things. One, TriMet has been experiencing a mechanic shortage coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, but with the help of human resources and labor relations, they've been able to attract a lot of good staff and have continued to increase their mechanic staff. 2, the introduction of our new zero emissions buses introduces new technology for the mechanics to learn. That takes time to train those folks and apply it across a large group of mechanics. And 3, we have an overall aging fleet. With the aging fleet, bus maintenance is performing overhauls of critical systems and components, so we expect that this number will continue to go up, and their preventative maintenance compliance rate is almost 100% for majority of the year. So that tells you right there that they're staying on top of all their preventive maintenance activities. Next slide.
In max operations, I'd like to highlight the mean distance between failure. It has stayed above target for 3 consecutive months, and until the Type 6 trains are fully commissioned, achieving target performance on this maintenance-oriented indicator will be challenging, but our maintenance departments are succeeding even in the twilight months of Type 1 train service. Next slide.
All right, ATP. As you've heard from Eileen, the director of ATP, in a recent presentations, the Lyft customer satisfaction rating is 98%. That's amazing. As you know, ATP relies on contractors to perform their major functions for Lyft, i.e. dispatch, transportation, and maintenance. On-time performance has improved greatly compared to last year, mainly because of new technology that allows Lyft dispatch and operators to optimize their route for their daily manifest of trips. The new on-vehicle software uses Google Maps, which helps dispatchers and operators navigate our neighborhood streets that we have here in Portland, which, as you know, we have a lot. For mean distance between failure, Lyft has been managing an aging fleet, as you know all too well from the various resolutions you've approved for new replacement vehicles for the Lyft team. In addition to that, as of early fall 2024, we changed the methodology for how this metric, for how we analyze this metric and how we classify major mechanical failures. So you'll see there that we had an uptick in August and September and are down a little bit, but we'll expect to continue to see that rise. Preventative maintenance compliance has been above target all year, which is good. For preventable collisions, you can see here that we started out below our target for the first 6 months or so, then started to trend upward. This is mostly due to Lyft having a lot of new operators and those folks getting used to being behind the wheel, and our contractor TransDev has also enhanced their operator training. We expect this number to continue to go down as those operators get more experience behind the wheel and receive better training. Next page.
For Wes, I'd like to talk about on-time performance, which is above target for all of calendar year 2024 to date. On-time performance is especially critical for Wes, not only for the rider experience, but also because it is a shared use rail alignment, 70% of which is single track. So congratulations to Wes and their team on this important metric. Next slide.
Well, thanks all. I'd just say that I get to be with you next week at the board retreat, where I'm going to be going to even larger detail related to our safety and security annual report. You remember we did one back in 23 as well. Give you some of that information, and then we're going to spend some good time on fare enforcement too, and where we're at with that journey. So looking forward to that, but just looking ahead. Really appreciate this team working, TSAS, the Transit System and Asset Support Group, under Les's leadership and Catherine's leadership, kind of compiling just an overview for you about some of our safety security stats, which has been added to the COO report. As you can see, and these indicators, operator assault, passenger assault, I will say passenger assaults is reports of passenger assaults. That they have to be verified, and this is part of the journey that we're going to be on as we get into data this next year, which I'm really excited about with our Omnigo security software. So I'm going to give you an update next week on that as well. Lots of data coming into the security center with our security software, and I'm going to give you some of that high-level data, how we can kind of confirm some of these reports and dispatch appropriately as well. There is a bus fare evasion metric that's been pulled for this as well. You can kind of see where we're at there. Again, we're going to spend a lot of time on that next week, digging into this a bit in terms of how we can move that lever throughout the year, not only for bus, but also for MAX. And you can see our safety response team is still out there actively making referrals. That group, in terms of the amount of folks that are out there right now, we're continuing to try to build that number up, and it fluctuates throughout the year, and so that's where you see some of those fluctuations. But there's a lot more metrics than just the referrals too, which I'll speak with you about next week as well. So just appreciate this kind of broad overview from the COO team, kind of adding us to the mix, and this is just about getting more data in front of you. So I'm here for questions.
Is your report, you want us to wait until? Oh, okay, go ahead, and then because I know I see things popping up here. Okay, go ahead. Les, are you?
Yeah, sorry, we're done.
Oh, okay.
Mega grid, as we call it, the last page.
Okay.
So yeah, that's it for us, and we'll have to answer any questions, and we'll be back next month.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members? Okay. Let's go with Director Tyler.
Thank you, President Lewis. Thank you all for this presentation. The mega grid aside, I really enjoyed reading through it, and it took a little bit of work for me to get through the mega grid, but it was actually really informative, so thank you. I had two questions, and Andrew, one of them is picking up on the little piece you mentioned about the safety response team. But Les and Catherine, yes, thank you. Two pieces. I was really surprised by how low the December boardings were. Not how low they were, but only a 0.2% increase compared to December 2023, and was wondering if either of you had insight into that. And then my other question is, it was helpful reading through this, remembering that the late night max shift has changed a lot of this. And that question might be for you, this question might be for Sam. I think it would be helpful for us to get an understanding of how that's showing up in terms of maintenance impacts. If we're getting feedback from folks who are on the late night bus instead of the late night max, what we're seeing in terms of security. So you can choose to answer that question or not if you have insight, and I'd love some insight in the first.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because part of our goal and intent with this report is to dive into more of the why. And so this report actually just goes through November 2024, and instead of reporting on December, which numbers are recently finalized and included elsewhere in your packet. Okay. But this one, again, we touched on some overview and some reasons why metrics are changing, but come next month, we'll have more analysis prepared for ridership. That way there isn't so short of a window between when the numbers are crunched and when we would be forced to speculate. So thank you for your interest, because we share it. Anything else to add, Les?
That's great, thank you.
Thank you, that I'm willing to be patient. Andrew, sorry, my last question. You mentioned briefly that the safety and response team referrals, they're down, which surprised me just from a layperson's perspective. And you mentioned some of that is just where they are out and about, but can you dig into that a little bit?
Yeah, staffing that group has been kind of a journey this whole time. We have large, sometimes fluctuations in the amount of staff that are actually enrolled in that program. So we have, sometimes we're down 10, sometimes we're up 10, those kinds of figures. They're doing incredible work out there, and I wouldn't necessarily just attribute all the work that they do to this particular number, because what this means is that they've actually made a referral to a service. But the other types of activity that they're doing, checking on people, wellness, those types of things aren't in that number. So I wouldn't be too attached to that number, but I would say that with the ups and downs and the amount of staff that are out there, that just affects the number as well. So, when you look at this, there's 790 referrals to service. That's still a pretty impressive number. And it doesn't represent all the work that they're doing. But as we grow that staff, this number will continue to raise. And we've got some plans to continue to do that over this next year. In partnership, actually, with folks that might want to enroll in this program with us to help us build those numbers as well. So that's exciting. We'll talk more about that next week.
Thank you. Just to piggyback on Director Frisbee's question, the blue phones, those are not reflected yet in these numbers, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And that's something that I'm really excited to get back in front of you next week when
Okay,
we go
that
over
will
those
be-
metrics. Yeah,
okay,
because
good.
those blue phones float into our new security operations center where we have 24-hour dispatchers. And so that data, we're really just kind of getting going in October, November. So we'll have a few months of data to be able to talk about. And then also be able to see how many calls are coming in and the types of calls that are coming in from the blue light phones specifically.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about that next week. So I'm
Good.
excited to bring that in front of you. We also will have MCSO data from the sheriff's office for transit next week as well. So we're going to dig a lot more into safety and security. This is a kind of a broad overview to kind of attach with the COO report this week.
Okay, thank you. Director Kim?
Thank you. Thank you, team. Very helpful. I do like the monthly updates. It's probably 3 times more work for you, but really appreciate it so that we can more real time connect and brainstorm, even if we have to speculate. I think that's also good for the public. One comment for likely Sam, just pointing to our on-time performance drop for Max to 76.6%. And I think it would be good for us to, not now, but in coming weeks, to talk about why we have 1 in 4 Maxes missing the mark, right? Which could potentially be one of the reasons about our November, December ridership decrease. But I think it would be meaningful for us to discuss all potential factors, including the ones that are in our direct control, as well as our indirect control, so that we can really get it back up. Not talking about ridership, I'm talking about the on-time performance. And hopefully ridership will also be positively affected by it. Thank you.
I'll have some information available with Anessa at our board retreat. I'll have that analysis work for you.
Are there any other board member questions for this panel? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate that.
Appreciate.
Now, I just want to remind the board to mark your calendars as what was stated earlier by Director Graham, to mark your calendars for Tuesday, February 4th. That's Rosa Parks Day. It'll be the 4th straight year that TriMet will not collect fares on February 4th, which was Rosa Parks' birthday. And have to thank former board director Keith Edwards for his leadership and bringing this idea forward, and to the board for adopting it back in 2020. The actions then helped ensure that this tradition is going to continue into the future. Rosa Parks Day celebrates an incredibly brave woman who took a stand for freedom and equality by remaining seated when she was not only told to move, but required to give her bus seat up to a white person by the racist segregationist laws in place back in Alabama in 1955. And as we all know, the police arrested Parks for her act of defiance, but that blatant injustice galvanized a movement that led to the Montgomery bus boycott, which lasted for more than a year. So, and it was a success. In 1956, the Supreme Court ruled segregation on city buses was unconstitutional, and then the Civil Rights of 1957 came a year later. So it is on February 4th that we celebrate transit equity here at TriMet and in our region. And that's the idea that everyone should have fair access to transportation regardless of race, income, or gender. So all are welcome on TriMet. And I would like to personally invite the board, members of the public as well, to ride with us on the 4th, to reflect on the history and on the struggles that got us here, and to be grateful for Rosa Parks and the mountain her actions moved to really bring real change for people in this country. So this year we're coordinating a special assembly with students at the Portland Rosa Parks school to really help them learn the legacy of the civil rights icon for whom the school is named. Believe it or not, we found out there were no lessons dedicated to the school's namesake. So now through our partnership, all of that has changed with that. And both the students and the community will benefit from this here. So thank you all, and look forward to seeing you at the event. Our next generation of light rail vehicles, very excited, we call them Type 6s. They're beginning to roll out into service, and it's just a beautiful thing to see a brand new light rail vehicle out on the system rolling. And I'll be the first to admit, it took longer than we have hoped to get the trains out there, but there were a number of reasons for the longer time frame and timelines. First and foremost, we have cutting-edge technology and upgraded features. And we've spent some time working out the software challenges with the manufacturer. Another factor is that these are the first new MAX trains we've introduced into the system without opening a brand-new MAX line. In the past, our burn-in and our testing of the trains could be done on those new areas of track that were not yet in service. And that wasn't the case this go-around, and these tasks had to be slotted into our regular service. And you may have seen some of the trains as they put the miles required by the FTA before we could bring riders on board to really test the systems and test the trains. Now that they're ready, we are able to introduce the new trains to our system and to our riders. I missed it yesterday by one train by getting on the new train and riding. So I'm gonna make sure I time it so that I'm able to catch the new train and ride on it. But again, these Type 6s are wonderful, new digital signs, LED lighting, better cameras on board, clearer pictures, new maintenance features that will allow our technicians to troubleshoot issues even before they occur on the system. So in total, we're adding 30 Type 6 trains, the rollout of which will continue in the months to come. So just want to thank all of the teams, Sean and your team. I know you guys have been working on this. Really want to just say thank you for the efforts and the dedication that's been put in, Lucas, and all of the groups. So last year, we started this new partnership with the Timbers and the Thorns for soccer matches at Providence Park. And it's called Ticket to Ride. And there's a song also that's called Ticket to Ride. But that's just not it. Match tickets doubled as fare on TriMet buses and MAX trains for up to 3 hours before and after the games. And this gave fans the opportunity to use TriMet instead of driving and parking and dealing with the frustration of parking. I don't know if you've ever been up on game day up there just to see what the parking is like around that area. It's just incredible. So I always tell people, see that train that's coming up the street? Jump on it, catch it to Providence Park. It'll get you there on time. No issue about parking whatsoever. So we saw thousands of people take advantage of this benefit. So we are continuing this partnership in 2025, and we're expanding upon it. So this year, if you attended a soccer match or a concert at Providence Park, you'll be able to use your ticket to the event as your ticket to ride, as we have also partnered with Live Nation, the concert promoter. Now the Timbers home game is coming up on February 23rd. So make sure all of you that's going to the game, ride TriMet to the game. And then Providence Park is looking to hold its first concert of the year, and that's with Post Malone and Jelly Roll. So I've got to get used to the names as well. It's going to take place on June 28th of this year. So Post Malone and Jelly Roll. So take your TriMet train to go to the concert. Next, we've reached a major milestone on the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. And this project will bring faster, high-capacity TriMet frequent express service to 82nd Avenue, which is currently the home to our busiest bus line. So we average anywhere between, depending on when, 10 to 15,000 people per day that ride the line 72. Last week, the project steering committee voted unanimously on its recommendation on the locally preferred alternative, what's known as LPA for us. In general speaking, the LPA identifies the route for the new FX line that will run about 10 miles between Clackamas Town Center and the northern terminus in the Cully neighborhood in northeast Portland. The LPA vote is a culmination of more than 2 years of work towards a shared vision on what the project should be. It also marks the transition of this project from Metro now to TriMet. And TriMet is holding an open house on 82nd Avenue Transit Project this evening. If you do want to go and attend and see the routes, interested parties can really get a look at our route, our proposed stop locations, as well as talk to TriMet staff about the project. So the open house is at PCC Southeast, starting at 5:30 tonight. So if you're there, we'll be out there and look forward to seeing you. Or you can go, if you can't make it tonight, you can go to TriMet.org, 82nd, for a closer look at the project and really leave your feedback. So the board will hear more about the project and the LPA during our February board briefing, and you'll get to vote on the LPA in March. You know, I know that Director Frisbee, you've been involved quite a bit, and just want to say to the board, we really appreciate your efforts also working on this project. This is our next big project that's coming for TriMet. Director Way, I know you've had some insight, so I really appreciate that. So now up next is IDEA, our Public Affairs Division. They're working together to update TriMet programs that ensures equity and how TriMet does our business. We've had robust community outreach that's underway to update TriMet's Title VI program in our language access plan and our DBE program. So our Chief Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility Officer, John Gardner, along with Christina Bonet and Daphne Patrick, they're here to provide us an update. So John, I'll just flip to you.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Good morning, Board President Lewis and members of the board. I'm excited today to provide an overview of sort of what we'll be doing over the next 6 months to get agency ready to submit new Title VI program updates, a new language access program update, and a new DBE program update. And as said, I'm joined today by Christina Bonilla, our language access program manager, and Daphne Patrick, our DB and Workforce Equity Program Manager. So we'll start with the Title VI program update. Next slide. So as everyone knows, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 states that no person of the United States on the grounds of race, color, or national origin be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Next slide. And that is the governance for our Title VI program and the programs that you'll hear about today. I think most of the time you get a chance to see Title VI as it relates to service analysis and sometimes the complaint section. But if you look at the slide here, you'll recognize that there are actually 9 elements that constitute TriMet's Title VI program. And when we send you the link of the current program, you'll see that we implement our program across 400 pages of examples of how we adhere to this law and how we demonstrate our commitment to these areas, all of which are being updated ahead of giving you a new program model for the next 3 years that we'll be bringing to you in June. Next slide. So this program update planning began last summer. We always look at other organizations across the United States to see how they're doing. TriMet's thresholds when it comes to equity analysis are incredibly sensitive, probably top 5, top 10 in the nation. So we don't see a lot of changes there. Really, we'll be looking at our policies and procedures and what's occurred over the last 3 years and making slight adjustments and also listening to what we heard from the community engagement we did in the fall, but also we're partnering with Public Affairs and as part of their attitude and awareness survey efforts this spring. So when we come back to you, you'll all see sort of the feedback that we've gotten about any subtle changes that we'll be making to the program. But for the most part, we feel really good about what the program's accomplished and where it's at. So a lot of what we'll be showing and sharing with you in the next 5 months will just be us articulating and demonstrating what's happened in the previous 3 years. Next, I'd like you to hear from my colleague to provide an update, Christina Bonilla, about TriMet's Language Access Plan update efforts.
Good morning. Good morning, President Lewis and fellow board members. My name is Christina Bonilla, and I'm the Language Access Program Manager at TriMet. Thank you for the opportunity to share a brief overview of the initiatives that we have currently been participating at TriMet. Next slide, please. TriMet's Language Access Plan is designed to ensure that individuals with limited English proficiency have meaningful access to TriMet services and programs. The U.S. Census defines LEP individuals as those who can read, speak, and write English less than very well. At TriMet, we strive to ensure that translate information is not significantly restricted, delayed, or inferior when compared to information provided to English proficient individuals. On the screen, you'll see an example of vital information that has been translated into multiple languages. This statement on the screen is the TriMet Civil Rights Statement. Next slide. An example, providing meaningful access to individuals with limited English proficiency is an expansion of our language access, language service vendors to increase our availability of linguists who can provide culturally and linguistically relevant information in our safe harbor languages and beyond. What you see on the screen to the left is a list of the languages that meet the safe harbor threshold in the TriMet service area, and then also some images of vital information translated into Korean. In this example, far right, that is our low-fare program requirements and eligibility for individuals. Next slide. In the process of updating the language access plan, we have intentionally partnered with various community-based organizations to engage LEP communities. We have utilized the International Association for Public Participation's Community Engagement Spectrum as a guide to ensure best practices. Additionally, the diversity in our partner organizations reflect the linguistic diversity of our community engagement team, led by Amparo Agosto. Her team, which includes Kitty Kong, Karina Archibald, and Hao Wen, have been instrumental in reaching our linguistically diverse community and ensuring their participation in their language. Next slide. Lastly, this slide provides a brief overview of the timeline for updating the language access plan. While updating the language access plan, we aim to prioritize LEP communities, develop initiatives that are inclusive training and tools for staff, and set inclusive agency goals, dedicated resources, and align our research and implementation with best practices. We launched a public survey for our community in the fall in 16 languages and facilitated 39 focus groups that focused on safety, security, and cleanliness in multiple languages. Staff surveys and focus groups will begin in February and go through the end of March. There will be ample opportunities for input before presenting the language access plan to you all in June of this year. Thank you, and I welcome any questions or comments.
Yes, we do have one question. Director Frisbee?
Thank you. I'm just hoping you can educate me on the culturally responsive engagement slide. It was interesting to note that each of the sort of placards had a government agency listed as one of the entities. And can you just describe the thinking and philosophy behind that?
Yes, so the spectrum before you is like the community engagement model that we're utilizing for best practices. The images within the different categories are not specific to that, the title above, for example, empower, right? So let's go back actually with consult. On the bottom there is the city of Hillsborough. What this is aimed to demonstrate is that we have reached across different jurisdictions, community-based partners, and other organizations to ensure that we're reaching our hard-to-reach communities who may not have access to our information and services. And so it's not necessarily aimed at ensuring that that agency is doing that work, but they're partners to do that work with us.
Sorry, can I clarify?
Yes.
So you're saying that, like, under Involve, it lists three: the Division Midway Alliance, Latino Network, and Tualatin High School. Those are not necessarily organizations or institutions that were part of your Involve sector?
Oh, no, they are.
Okay.
So what this, and I apologize for the confusion.
No, I'm
we
sure it was my
had
fault.
over 10 agencies that have helped us facilitate our survey and our listening sessions, focus groups that were aimed at safety, security, and cleanliness. As a part of reaching out to those partners, that ensured that we were able to inform the LEP communities of the work that we were intending to do and the information we were seeking to gather. We also used those organizations to help us consult on best practices about how to engage community and how to gather information, and so forth as you go down that list. The reason that there's just specific organizations is just to show an image of all the different types of organizations that have been working with us in partnership during this process.
Thank you. I think what I want to make sure is that when we're focusing on really trying to empower organizations or collaborate with them or asking them how best to advance their community members, we are focusing on community-based organizations and not necessarily government partners who don't necessarily need the empowerment and are not always the best representatives of unheard communities.
Yes, thank you. And then just to clarify, the City of Hillsboro's up there, they have a civic engagement program that we utilize their email listserv of alumni that have participated in civic engagement training to help us facilitate our survey with those communities because they represent communities who have been historically and currently marginalized and are linguistically diverse.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Way?
Thank you. I want to just piggyback off of Director Frisbee's questions. Thank you for raising that. I also had similar questions around just the amount of community engagement that y'all are doing, and also just want to back up and say this plan is just really impressive. I mean, like the 16 languages, the inclusiveness, that is I think TriMet being bold and ambitious with our mission to serve like all writers and in all the different languages that are spoken on our system. So thank you for taking on this incredible work. And yeah, I think this is a good snapshot, I think, of some of the agencies and partners that y'all are working with. But I think as a board member, I would be interested in knowing what are the other phases of this plan, again, as Director Frisbee mentioned, to include more of like the culturally specific service-based organizations that are really, like I'm thinking about just IRCO, for example, Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization. There's lots of many others in our regions who are really, in addition to these, partners, government agencies, school districts are, I think, also really the folks who are on the day-to-day serving clients, serving families, et cetera. So that's just my comment. I think the other question that I have is I'm always, I'll say it again, maybe not a surprise, but I'm really interested in how TriMet can continue to roll out various signage in different languages. I was in California this past summer with a TriMet board member conference and was just really impressed with the different signage in multiple languages that was offered on their buses and on their light rail systems. And so just wondering if this language plan would include us, again, maximizing all of the opportunities that we have as an agency to have various languages displayed, whether it's on our bus stops or inside our MAX vehicles. And I know that we also are going through an improvement where we are, I think there's like the digital signboards, and so, yeah, on the trains. And so if that's already underway, that's great, but just wanted to dig in a little bit more of the public-facing, again, language and signs that we're looking into.
Great question, Director Way. And I would say first, because of the great partnership with IT and Public Affairs, we now have SmartLing, so our capacity to translate in more real time across all of our safe harbor languages is greatly increased. And to be fair, Christina only showed you a snapshot today, so when we come back in June, you'll see the 29 community-based organizations that are actually achieving almost 3,000 survey responses in non-English languages, as well as the public agencies she's convened to make sure we're leveraging existing strategies across multiple jurisdictions about how they're providing limited English proficient community service. And we're hoping to send Christina down to California to sort of see what's happening with marketing and signage in communities that are even more diverse in Portland. So all of that will be reflected when we come back to you with our full recommended program in the spring.
Great, thank you.
And next we have Daphne Patrick.
Good morning, President Lewis and fellow board members. My name is Daphne Patrick. I'm the DB and Workforce Equity Program Manager here at TriMet. Thank you so much. 2024 was a big year for the DBE program, the first real updates to the DBE program in a decade, primarily focused on increasing participation of socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, helping to create a level playing field and modernizing the program to remove barriers throughout proactive monitoring and oversight. Next slide. TriMet monitors compliance with our B2G system. This system helps TriMet enforce the new DBE program rules. Currently, TriMet has 727 open contracts, 693, It just got updated to 727, at a value of almost $1.5 billion. Not all of these are federally funded contracts, but TriMet tracks all projects and spends over $10,000. One of our program goals is how we can monitor these projects and spends to help us understand what current small business participation and how to increase these dollars throughout all of TriMet's divisions. Next slide. Currently, our DBE program has a triennial goal of 14.85 for all federally funded contracts. In 2025, TriMet will be updating its DBE program and the triennial goals for federal fiscal years 26 through 28. This update will include an availability study which will need to be completed by early summer of this year. TriMet will engage both contractor and community involvement and review benchmarks on how TriMet has done for our last federal fiscal years. Once this is completed, it will help TriMet build out our overall DBE and small business development program, which will include the updated ESB and veteran business enterprise classifications from the state of Oregon. Last but not least, one of our goals is to be able to implement a program that will provide technical assistance to certified firms on TriMet. As always, we're available to meet and discuss these program updates. Do you have any questions for me?
Seeing none, but I did have, will you in the final report include those benchmarks?
Yes,
Oh,
we will
okay.
definitely show the board of directors what those benchmarks are.
Okay, thank you.
And so again, this was meant just to provide a brief overview of 3 different efforts that do overlap, that have a lot of community involvement, a lot of public system involvement. Very soon in the spring, we'll be putting draft documents online to receive comments, but we wanted to make sure you all were aware. And myself or any of my staff would love to meet with you over the next few months if you have any questions or suggestions. We did have good feedback from Director Kellogg, and we are going to be building out our support for small businesses, especially ESBs, in this next program update. So those are the kind of things we'd love to hear from all of you over the next few months.
Okay, Director Frisbee had some final, and then I have one final question.
My one request that I think would help the board too is if it's possible in your final report to sort of compare that 14.85% to other agencies around the country so that we can understand how that plays and how we're lining up against our peers.
And we'll share an availability study. That's how we determine it, but we'll show you what other state and local agencies are doing in the region and other like communities, just so it's apples to pears as much as we can get.
That was a real like Pacific Northwest analogy, and I just want to appreciate it.
Born and bred.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. I did have one final comment, and it's very, very impressive to look at the activity detail. There's one element that's, I think, in my opinion, missing is our board of directors knowing about these activities. So hopefully in your research, how can we receive advance notice so that we can attend? I went through and just tried to identify what was going on in the different districts. Coming up at our next board retreat, we'll be talking about community engagement. And so this is really vital information so that we can be present when you're doing focus groups. I know there's some that you target, but we have lots of pages, and half of these some of them, I would have loved to have known to attend. And so we're missing a good opportunity to have the board be present in their communities and in their districts. And I really, really advocate for board engagement coming up, and this is a good groundwork. So somehow, some way, even if it's in our monthly packet of what's coming up for the next month, where we can, if as time allows in our time, to be present with our families to attend and be part of TriMet's family. Thanks.
Thank you, President Lewis. And that's something I think between Amparo Angosto and Jennifer Cruiser, JC staff, I think we can definitely put that together. They're already tracking it, so that's something that we can do in the months ahead. Thank you.
One last question from Director Aaron.
Thank you so much. I am interested as we go forward in learning more about the technical assistance programs that you're thinking about, and how they could be augmented. I know in recent conversations I've had with a number of different culturally specific chambers of commerce, for example, and other business-oriented associations, that they are also increasing technical assistance to a number of firms to be able to help them prepare to respond to things like TriMet's RFPs. And so I just would be interested in knowing more about how TriMet is engaging those other entities that are also providing technical assistance services to make sure we're not doing anything that's redundant, but also that together all the pieces can add up to something greater.
Thank you so much. We are actually starting that research right now on what other agencies are doing. I just reached out to Multnomah County and are having conversations with them. Port of Portland has a great mentor protege technical assistance. So yes, we are reaching out to other agencies and other groups that'll be part of our community and contractor effort to see what is going out there and how TriMet can make our technical assistance program just as good or even better.
Thank you.
Any other comments? JT, are you out there? Any comments? Okay, thank you. Excellent, thank you. Returning the floor over to General Manager.
Thank you, and my final update is TriMet, and as what was stated by you, TriMet and our ATU Local 757, they joined a ceremonial procession in Seattle on January 10th to honor the slain bus operator. His name, King County Metro operator Sean Yim. He was fatally stabbed on December 18th while on the job. So we sent up our bus, one of our lift vehicles. It joined more than 100 vehicles in this procession that took place to honor Operator Yim. The procession stretched nearly a mile in Seattle, and there was transit agencies as far north as Vancouver, all the way down to us that actually attended there. And then the procession was followed by a memorial that was hosted by the ATU Local 587, which is in Seattle. Among our TriMet and Lyft employees that took part, we've had operators, we had assistant managers, mechanics that actually attended as well. And I do want to call out and a really shout out to our ATU 757 President Bruce Hanson and Vice President Henry Beasley. They both were there and in person during that time frame. So thank you, Bruce and Henry, if you are listening here. And then all of those that went to represent us, our organization, really want to say thank you on that. The ones that did go, they described the experience as very emotional and very moving. And they also described it as inspirational with such of an overwhelming show of support that took place there from our industry and the community. So my heart goes out to Operator Yim and his loved ones and his coworkers at King County Metro. And I just want to thank Lyft and TriMet Bus, all the employees that, Nessa, your group represented us to really show that we stand with all of those that were touched by this senseless tragedy that took place. So really appreciate that. And with that, that concludes my report.
Thank you, General Manager. And just to echo his words, on behalf of the board, our thoughts, our feelings go out to the families of our fallen brothers and sisters in the line of service as public servants. Let us now turn to our consent agenda. Items appearing on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. This morning, the consent agenda consists of approving the minutes for our last meeting of December 11th, 2024, and a resolution directing that all ordinances be read by title only. Does any director wish to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to approve the items contained in the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment before we vote? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any, aye?
Aye.
Any?
Oh, JT.
Thank you. Any
Sorry, is there a
opposed?
lag?
Thank you.
A little bit.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. One moment here. Okay. Let's move now to the resolutions. Slightly lost my plate. I'll blame it on JT. We'll now move to the resolutions on the regular agenda. Our first and only resolution before the board today is resolution number 240101, authorizing a modification of the construction manager general contractor services contract with Mass Electric Construction Company for the Pioneer Courthouse Square Type 1 Traction Power Substation Replacement Project. Mr. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
President Lewis, members of the board, this resolution focuses on the project to reconfigure the substation at Pioneer Courthouse Square. The project will reconfigure the existing underground vault to enhance maintenance access, improve ventilation for climate resilience, and accommodate a new electrical substation equipment. The substation is one of 12, was installed back in 1983 as part of our Max Blue Line. Many components are obsolete, necessitating their upgrade or replacement. So in June 2024, the TriMet board approved a contract with Mass Electric Construction Company for pre-construction services amounting to about $300,000. In September of 2024, the board authorized a modification of $1.5 million for the purchase of long lead items and spare parts. This resolution authorizes a modification to include the $5 million total contract price for construction services, plus change orders up to 20% or $1 million. The $6 million contract modification is included in the engineering construction FY 2025 budget and the FY 2026 budget forecast. Taking a look at diversity, Mass Electric employs about 1,600 people, of whom 43% are minorities and 10% are women. I recommend your approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 250101?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, from over there in visual territory. Thank you, JT. It's been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment before we vote? Okay, seeing no hands up, all in favor of this motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? This motion carries. Thank you. Moving on, our second matter for the board to consider today is the second reading of ordinance number 379, our annual housekeeping measure. This ordinance revises the TriMet Code's definition of net earnings from self-employment and keeps it inconsistent with the definition in the federal tax code. I now request our General Counsel, Shelley Devine, to read the ordinance number 379 by title only.
Thank you, Ms. Board President. Ordinance number 379 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, amending Chapter 14 of the TriMet Code to revise the definition of net earnings from self-employment. This is the second reading.
Thank you, Shelley. Mr. General Manager, following our second reading, do you have any comments on ordinance 379?
Thanks, President Lewis, members of the board. This ordinance comes in regard to our annual housekeeping measure. Ordinance 379 has been reviewed by TriMet's outside tax counsel to make sure that it properly reconnects the definitions in Chapter 14 to the definitions in the current federal tax code. I recommend your approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance number 379?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and second that we adopt the ordinance. Does any members of the board have any questions or comments regarding ordinance number 379 before we vote? Okay, seeing none, we will now have a roll call vote on ordinance number 379. I will ask our General Counsel, Shelley Devine, to call the roll.
Thank you. I'll start with Director Flowers.
Aye.
Director Graham.
Aye.
Director Kellogg.
Aye.
Director Way.
Aye.
Director Kim.
Aye.
Director Frisbee.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Aye.
Ordinance 379 passes unanimously.
Thank you. It is hereby approved and unanimously voted. At this time, I adjourn our business meeting. Get to gavel that. That concludes our business for the day. Our next public meeting is at the board retreat. A little notice there for the board members. Next Wednesday begins at 9 here in the boardroom. We'll have food and everything. At this time, our meeting is adjourned. Yay. Wow.
Yay.
Yay.
That was shorter.
That was short. Yeah.
I'm gonna try to make it to the 82nd open house today. Are you
Okay.
gonna be there?
No, I catch a plane. That's what I was hoping. I had to get out of here by 11, but I have a half. I'm headed to SoCal, Southern Cal. I was going to a quilt, big expo, huge.
Yeah.
But we're also going to be collecting quilts for the fire victims for
I
mountains.
was just gonna ask.
Yeah.
Did you have?
I do have family in LA, yeah. Brothers, cousins, they aren't affected, but they can't see and breathe. It's just because they're right, in that area, so they're just surrounded. So the core of LA is